Welcome to the 10X Show. I'm Mark Organ. I'm joined by Roman Bodarchuk. This is a show all about the big idea that the second half of your life can be 10 times better than your first, full of contrarian ideas and first principles thinking. And today we're going to talk about advice, relationship advice, more specifically, that we want to give or are giving to our teenage sons and daughters.
This is a big show, Mark. I think the number one determining factor of our life's happiness and our success is our partner and who we mate with. It's probably the most important thing we do in our lives.
That is absolutely true. That's absolutely true. And I'm lucky that, I grew up in a home where my parents taught me that. My parents actually have a phenomenal marriage. And I'm lucky that at least my mom spent a lot of time with me to teach me like what a great woman is all about, right? So it is the most important decision that you're going to make. And the other thing is we are in a minefield right now with respect to what's going on in relationships.
It's crazy.
It is absolutely bonkers.
It's nuts what's going on.
The divorce rate
off
is
the charts.
Never been higher.
Yeah.
And it's actually going down a little bit, but the only reason why is because no one's getting married anymore.
Right. Correct.
Right? So among people who are married, the divorce rate is very high.
Yeah.
Women are initiating 80% of divorces.
Yes.
If they're educated, which I think we want our sons to marry educated women, 90%. If there is a divorce, that she is going to initiate it, and it's a minefield for both genders.
Yes.
If you look at even rates of having sex is way down. Rates of dating is way down. And it's not just here in the West. This is a global phenomenon. And one of the things I just saw, which is pretty shocking, is that even in China where they actually have a significant surplus of men, and for a while things were good for women there, not anymore. So now there's record numbers of what are called shengyu, and shengyu are leftover women. So these are women that are 26 years old and up that are essentially unmarriable now.
Right.
So even with a surplus of men and women are not getting together.
Wow.
Basically, what's happening is that women have very high standards. The men are not able to meet them. So the women say, well, I'm not going to go and get married. Men are doing God knows what. And so they're not getting together. You have reproduction rates of like 1.1 children per woman in Korea and in Singapore and China and places like that. So like people are not having babies anymore. It's an absolute disaster. I mean, anyone who's actually actively dating right now,
it's
again,
crazy.
both for the men and the women. So the men are saying, I can't buy myself a date these days, right? I get one or two matches a week on this sort of thing. But the women are complaining too. And they're saying, yeah, I get 300 matches a day, but I got to sift through all of it. And they think, and it's like 95% garbage.
Right.
And a lot of women are saying, I'm just going to, I'm going to focus on they've given up too. I think it's an absolute disaster out there. In fact, I think we're looking at like the collapse of Western civilization.
We are
if we're not fixing it because we're not people. I mean, Elon Musk has said, there's no kids.
There's no kids.
Right?
Yeah. And that's why we're our immigration in Canada, like we brought like 2.5 million people a year, and the U.S. flooding the immigrant because no one's having babies. They're not getting married. They're not having kids anymore. This is a catastrophe.
It's a catastrophe. And you know what? This is not going to happen with our kids, I hope. And with many of the people who are watching the show, we want to avoid this. And again, it's a hard challenge, right?
Yeah.
It is so hard for people even just to meet the right kind of person. Never mind to to date and to get married.
Yeah.
A lot of men are scared of having that commitment. They're scared of divorce and all the consequences of it. But again, I think it's true for women too, who also are nervous about being tied down and whatnot. But I think we have some ideas.
We do. And I just want to do a disclaimer. This will be a very controversial topic. So we just hope you listen today with an open mind. My parents have been married. We're getting close to like 58 years successfully. Your parents, amazing. So we're blessed to have role models. Yeah. We're blessed to have amazing role models. And we've seen what great marriages look like. And then we've also had real challenges in our personal life. So we've had the spectrum here. But we want to give advice to our teenage kids. I've got a teenage daughter and teenage boys, and you've got the same. And we want to give what we've learned in our life the best advice possible.
Yeah. No, and times have changed. So you're right. My parents have a phenomenal marriage. and I mean, full of love and respect and passion, which is amazing. But you know what? They got married at a young age. My mom was 21. My dad was 23. They were both virgins when they got married, which I can't imagine what their honeymoon night was like, both being virgins. But that's a different time, right?
Yeah.
Now the average marriage age is like 30 or something.
I think it's even older, yeah.
It's 30. For the first time ever, 30-year-old women are out earning 30-year-old men.
Right.
And you're like, well, what does that matter for relationships?
Oh, it's huge.
Everything.
Yes.
Everything, right?
Yeah.
We've never had this before. Normally you have it where, a woman wants to marry up. She wants to marry somebody who makes more money, who's going to give her a better lifestyle. And that's kind of the natural way of things. That's a great partnership. That's no longer there. And I think it's one of the reasons why I think women are initiating a lot of divorce or may not want to get married at all.
Let's go back to kind of first principles. So if you think about the DNA of a man and the DNA of a woman, it's very different. So most men, think about the caveman, because our DNA is the same. They're hunters or killers. Like they're not the nurturing. It's a very different environment for a man and a woman. Right. And I think our society's blended these roles.
Absolutely.
Where men have become women and women have become men, and we're all confused, and it's not working. It's clearly not working. We have the highest incident of suicides in history. Everyone's on antidepressants now. If they're not on antidepressants, they're addicted to drugs or alcohol. In Toronto, we have a cannabis store on every friggin' city block. And now they've got these mushroom shops. Like, we have epidemic unhappiness.
Right.
So this system of men acting like women and women acting like men, it's not working. It's completely broken.
It's not working. And honestly, just given the reality of the modern world, the modern economy, whatever, some of that is unavoidable. The question is what within our current framework is going to work. Like, it's hard for me to imagine in this city of having a one-income family.
Yeah, it's impossible.
Imagine,
it's impossible
right?
now.
A woman pretty much has to work.
Right.
I think if it's a one-income family, it's probably something like $400,000 plus in income that's required.
Right.
That's like the top 0.1% of the
Correct.
population.
Correct.
But that said, even within an environment where both the husband and wife are working and bringing money in, both husband and wife are taking care of children, are taking care of the home, can you have polarity in there, right? Can the wife, after she's finished slaying dragons at work, can she come home and be more feminine and be more nurturing?
It's super hard.
Right?
It's super hard.
Can the man show strong leadership at home, strong masculine leadership, still help out, right? And do what's required.
Right.
And I think this is time where we need to be conscious of this.
Yes.
Right. And unfortunately, I learned this too late in terms of my
Me too.
marriage.
Me
right?
too.
We both have. Where you really need to be both. Like we need to act as men.
Yes.
As strong alpha men, in the marriage, but still have a nurturing side to us and keep that balance. And I think the same advice for women is you've got to turn off the boss bitch when you come home. Right. Just don't order your husband around. It doesn't work very well.
No, it doesn't work well. So we learned this too late. No one taught us this. So what's interesting is like we're told we've got to go, to college, university for 4 years or 6 years or however long they want us there, to get this job. But the greatest determinant of our success is actually the partner.
Right.
So
let's
today
talk about that.
Today we're talking about picking the right partner, which is way more important than any other decision you'll make, period.
That's absolutely right. And again, I'm grateful that, my mom spent time to teach me about this instead of calculus or some other shit. Right. So she did actually spend some time with me. And I will say I did choose well in terms of the person that I chose as my partner. It's not gone perfectly well. So we have
always
hope.
Challenges.
But I chose well. And part of it was my mother's influence. So one of the things that she did tell me a lot is she wanted me to go on a lot of dates when I was in university. She actually gave me a dating quota. I'd come home for...
Really?
Oh yeah, I'd come home for Thanksgiving dinner or whatever, and she'd be like, okay, how many dates did you go on last month? I mean, well, Mom, it was tough. I'm doing a lot of studying. I went on one date. She'd be like, that's a problem. So most parents would be like, no, we want you to study hard.
Right, interesting.
But what my mom was trying to do was sharpen up my perception of what a great woman was.
Right, because you got to meet a lot to understand it.
You got to meet. You have to develop your own framework.
Yes, it makes sense.
Again, this is before the internet.
Yeah.
Where we could read, and have all these YouTube videos, whatever.
Yes, yeah.
So I needed to develop my own idea of what of what a great potential partner was. But she also helped me out. She said, if you can, for example, try to marry someone from an intact home, if you can.
That's a big one.
Yeah,
That's a big
especially where the relationship is good.
Yes.
Between a woman and her father.
Huge.
Very important.
Huge.
Where she could see that her parents may disagree, but they resolve things.
They figure out how to resolve things.
They figure out how to resolve things, because then she's going to take those same lessons,
Same skills.
with her. So that was it. The other thing she taught me was to not date an insecure woman.
That's amazing. That's great.
But I would come home like, Mom, they're all insecure.
Yeah.
And she'd say, not all of them.
Right.
Not all of them.
But it's very rare to meet one that's not insecure.
Yeah. But there are some that are comfortable. You're right. Yeah. Everyone's insecure.
We're all insecure.
Everyone's insecure about something.
But some
right?
are far more than others.
But some are just a mess, and there's others that are just comfortable in their own skin.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. It's very rare to find.
And,
You're right.
And so how do you know if someone's, how do you know if somebody is, insecure or not? Well, some things you can tell right away by looking at them.
Yes.
Okay. So, for example, one of the things that I've noticed is that, if somebody has done a lot to change their appearance, so they've got tattoos or a bunch of piercings, or even like the eyebrows, like their eyebrows look normal as opposed to like this big ass arch to it.
Right. Right.
They're just more comfortable in they don't have to wear push-up bras and really high-heeled shoes all the time. Like they're just kind of, I've just noticed a correlation between people who are comfortable in kind of how they look naturally.
Yes. Right. Versus trying to do artificial things.
Artificial things, whatever, boob job,
butt lift and all this crazy stuff.
High-heeled shoes, cosmetic work on their face and whatnot. I mean, this is somebody who is, focused on things that are like literally cosmetic,
right?
As opposed to like working on things that are inside.
That's good.
So those are a couple of things that my mom taught me, and I'm grateful for, and I think were really helpful.
Those are good rules.
And I think we can kind of maybe build on this a little bit, and especially talking about some of what you said, which is, you said our DNA is different. I mean,
right.
Phrased differently, I would say that we have evolved for different purposes, and some of that is due to our sexual nature, right? So our sperm is cheap, right? We can impregnate, in theory, we can impregnate hundreds of women.
Yeah.
And not all those babies are going to survive, but a lot of them are.
Right.
And so our sperm is cheap. Women's eggs are very expensive. They're very dear. They have to carry the baby to term. They have to take care of the baby. And that drives some big differences.
Correct.
A woman's sexual market value is at its peak around 23, according to research I've seen.
Yeah.
A man's sexual value is at its peak around 36.
So it's very different.
That's massive.
Just explain. So this is sexual attractiveness.
Yes.
I just want to
this is
define
attractiveness to the opposite sex.
Right.
And that's not just
and
and
so
it's
just-
not just physical.
So on that point, so whenever you see all these like cosmetic ads, or most advertising for fashion, it's always like these young 21, 22-year-old girls.
Absolutely.
Right?
But
And
that's
which
not
makes
always
sense.
true for men.
No, the men are
let's
usually
think
older.
About,
You're right.
do you know what? So do you know what is the top selling cologne for men?
Eternity.
It's the one that it's Sauvage. It's the
Okay.
one that Johnny Depp.
Okay.
How old is Johnny Depp? 56?
It's pretty. Oh, okay. And he's
Right?
still
Looks damn good.
He's still the
56.
promo guy.
Yeah,
Is
he's
wow.
still the front man, even and actually more popular than ever after his big thing with Amber Heard.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Yeah.
Think about a lot of male sexual icons today. George Clooney is considered to have scientifically the most attractive face for a man.
Right.
Right. Brad Pitt. These are men in their 50s.
Yeah,
Right?
it's true.
How many women in their 50s are promoting this stuff? So
Not too many.
So I think it's not just now. Brad Pitt and George Clooney are very attractive men.
Yes.
But they also are multi-millionaires. George Clooney is a billionaire.
Is he really now?
Because of his tequila.
Because of tequila.
Because of Casamigos.
Wow.
And I'm sure that is a big part of his attractiveness.
Yeah.
Right? So it's about their attraction to the opposite sex. And so why is it so different? Because is a man as physically attractive at 36 as at 23? No. He's more physically attracted at 23, for sure.
Okay.
But his sexual market value is higher at 36. Why is that? Because he's developed friendships that are powerful. He's got a network. He's making money, right? He's on his way up. He has the power to get things done.
Right.
He has the ability to provide and make his children more successful.
Right.
And in the old days, if you look at a couple hundred years ago, you would typically have a 36-year-old guy who's inherited some land,
Yes.
developed that land already, then looks for a wife.
Right.
And the wife is a young, maiden, 20, 21
Right.
years old.
Right.
And that's why there's so many widows. The men would die so much sooner.
Right.
Right.
'Cause
Because
age gap.
there's an age gap, and men already die really younger already to
Yes.
begin with.
Yes.
So there's this big gap. And so men are hardwired to look for youth and fertility. That's a lot of the value, at least traditionally, that women provided.
Right.
And even today, when you look at lists of like, what do you look for in a woman? Most men don't say, I'm looking for a woman with a great career.
Never.
Like on dating sites,
that
women
never
talk
happens.
all about their wonderful careers or whatever, thinking that it matters to men.
Men
And
don't care.
it really doesn't.
Men don't care.
It might matter to loser men.
Right.
Right. But for men of like substance, whatever, they want a woman who's feminine, kind, and gentle and submissive and loving and caring and whatnot. And
maybe that can cook. Maybe that can cook.
Well, yeah, historically. I mean,
Yeah.
before Uber
Yeah.
Eats, I guess you want to
Yeah.
be able to cook. But you know what?
Yeah.
Even now, do you really want to eat out all the time? Like, no, you want
No.
to eat good, healthy food at home. So yeah, I think these are these traditional feminine traits that, that men really value. So they really look for the physical, physical appearance, the show of fertility, right? When's a woman maximally fertile? When they're young, 22, 23 years old. So holy cow, this is a major gap. How should we deal with it? And so I think as I have given advice to my daughter and my son, my daughter is 17, my son is 14, it's radically different. So there are some things where,
very different.
men and women are similar. Like as I think about, let's say, to give advice on how to do well at your job or career, I don't think the advice for a woman is
the
that
same.
different for a man. I think it's
the
pretty
same.
similar.
Yeah.
But when it comes to relationships and mating and stuff,
It's the opposite.
radically different.
Yeah.
In fact, our strategies are literally 180 degrees.
So let's
apart.
talk about it.
Yeah.
So my daughter's 19. And so what she's sort of told me is she's had one boyfriend, and I'm happy it ended. So what advice, if you were talking to my 19-year-old daughter, what advice would you give a 19-year-old girl right now?
Yeah. So I would say that, a couple of things. First of all, I think the most important relationship skill for a young woman to develop is how to identify a great man on the way up. Okay?
Very good.
We don't want to wait for him to be 36, because at 36, he's got dozens of women who are after him. If he was a real superstar, the world's his oyster. We can't wait for him to be 36. You got to buy NVIDIA at $20 a share. Not at $3,000 a share.
And more now than ever, because they're online, and 10% of the men online get all the women. Right. So if he's 37 and he's been successful, he's getting all the women. So he's going to have plethora of options. So you're right. You got to get him young.
Yeah, we want to buy the Apple stock at $10
IPO,
a share.
Pre-IPO.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it.
Pre-IPO.
Pre-IPO is a great way to put it. Like some people made a lot of money on Apple way before IPO. The venture capitalists did.
Right.
How did they do that?
Yeah.
Well, first, let's look at Steve Jobs. Let's look at Wozniak, right?
Yes.
Let's look at the initial early prototypes, products, right, that they have. You go, this company's a winner.
Yeah.
And some investors were so smart, and some employees were really smart to bet on Wozniak and Jobs early.
That's right.
And so that's the same sort of skill set I think young women need to learn to develop. It's hard. Like when I met my significant other, I was wearing a heavy metal T-shirt, and I was wearing probably 2 earrings and long hair and whatever.
Wow.
How do you know? How does she know that this is potentially someone of substance? Because a man at 19 is quite different from a man at 36. But there's some things that you could probably see.
There's some traits that,
for sure. You can see the work ethic, right?
Work ethic, discipline.
Does he go to the gym? Does he work out?
Right. Is he part of a sports team? Maybe.
Does he procrastinate on things, or does he go and get things done? Does he love his parents?
Yes.
Does he have a good relationship with brothers and sisters, his friends?
Is he generous with his family? Like things like that. These are all skills that you can pick up. You're right.
Absolutely. And I think it shows up early because this is a person that was raised well.
Yes.
Right. And they already have they have good manners. They've got good table manners. And there's probably a whole bunch of characteristics that are like that, and to get them to focus on people like that obviously they're still attractive. If there's one thing that I really appreciate now is how important attractiveness actually is for women. So you can't just discount it. Okay.
Right.
So it doesn't make any sense for your daughter to go out with somebody who looks great on paper and she's not attracted to.
100%.
She's got to be attracted to the guy, like
Yeah.
big time.
Yeah, for sure.
But at the same time, you know, if he
got
doesn't
some
have
depth. He's
enough
got a-
green flags,
Yes.
you know, I think it's really someone to avoid. So learn how to identify these sorts of people, and develop these sorts of frameworks, because ideally she should snap this guy up pre-IPO,
Right.
before he's even
Yeah.
24.
And some of my friends that have been married forever found, like, at a very young age. They met in college, you know, like early, and they're still together. And so there's some of the happiest relationships. So I think if you can pull that off in your young 20s, that's amazing.
That's amazing. And so the advice is, you know, again, most parents tell their young daughters, just study hard, work hard, you know, and the men will come. There's men everywhere. Men are raining from the ceiling, okay?
Right.
It's not true. It's not true. Now, I think generally young women are not in a position to ask out men. That's weird. But there are things they can do. So the advice that I gave my daughter is, you should join sports teams. And she's like, I'm going to do dance. I want to do dance. Like, dance is great. How many boys show up to dance class?
Right.
Not a lot. So if you're going to do dance, go learn swing dancing. Go learn salsa dancing, where the boys show up, right? Join a nonprofit, you know, a nonprofit board. There's high quality boys that are involved, you know, in that. These are people who are conscientious, right? And, you know, where's not a good place to meet boys? Bars, not as good.
Maybe the
Better to
worst
meet
place,
them at activities, right? Meet them on a sports team.
Yeah.
Meet them involved in nonprofit charity kind of work. Student government, right?
Yes.
You know,
that's a good one, because they're
government-
leaders.
Exchanges are good. My sister met an absolute prince of a man on an exchange in Argentina. Both at the same school. They're both at McGill, but at McGill they weren't meeting.
Right.
But once they were in a foreign place,
Yes.
they met. My sister knew within 5 minutes that was going to be her husband, and made it so. Right.
Yeah.
And they have 3 kids now. I'm very, very happy. So these sorts of opportunities, and that's way better than dating sites.
Oh, dating sites are a nightmare. So I was with my daughter last week, and we stayed at this place in Manhattan called the New York Athletic Club. It's really an amazing place, right on Central Park. And you had to get dressed up there. Like, you had a real strict dress code. And I said, you know, Kate, it's fun to be here because it's a different type of person that you're going to meet in this kind of place, right? And they could be the same age as her, but proximity is power. And my friend Dan Bauer has taught me that. You know, like where he lives, like in Palm Beach, like he's like beside like Mar-a-Lago. Like when you put yourself in certain places, you're going to meet a different type of person. So where you spend your time, maybe it's not like at Harvey's or Burger King, or like maybe you can put yourself in a better place to meet a higher caliber person.
I think that's huge. You've nailed it. But you know, a lot of women don't do this until they're out of university
Till it's too late
or
sometimes.
college.
Yeah.
They're out in the work world. They're like, oh wow, I'm not meeting anyone. This dating site sucks.
Yeah.
Right. I think, look, how much do you really use of the stuff that you learn in school? Does it really matter if you get an 83 versus an 87 average?
Right.
Probably not. Right. Versus the difference between going on 3 dates a month versus 1 is massive. The difference between, you know, having some of these other amazing experiences, even if they're not meeting men, even if they're just making a higher quality of female friends there, totally worthwhile doing. And even if it might cost a couple of points on the grades, I think that is a decision worth making.
Let's talk about dating sites, because it's important, because how most people meet now, which is amazing. So the challenge with dating sites, the research is pretty clear. Most people on dating sites aren't really looking for a relationship. So what happens is, for the first time in human history, we have this unlimited amount of people, and our brains can't process this. So it's like the grass always looks greener. So they're just constantly dating more and more people, and they're just never happy because everyone looks better. They just keep going on. So how, for millions of years of history, we tend to mate with the people near us, like the 2 or 3 or 4 people eligible around us, and it's a successful model. This model of having an endless supply it doesn't work. And let's say you find like the right guy, I'm again speaking to my daughter, but he has this endless supply of other women that will always look better, whatever, faster. It's like, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So online, I would argue, is the worst play. I know it's good for first dates, because you can have like 100 if you want, but to ultimately find that correct mate, this pre-IPO guy, I'm going to bet it's probably not going to be online.
It's probably not online.
Yeah.
No, and again, I think it shows the value of locking up a great man early.
Yeah.
Right. So again, we don't want to wait for him to be 26, 27. A young man at 21, has a lower value today,
Yeah.
even if he might be great in the future. He might look good, right?
Yeah.
He's got a good body because he's young. But yeah, like if you can lock that guy up by 21, 22, hopefully get married by 24, 25.
That's perfect.
It's perfect.
And your kids will be, when you have children, like your body recovers much quicker. Like there's so many benefits to
Everything
being
gets
young
better.
parents.
Yeah, so
like my parents were young when they
my
had me,
parents too, yeah.
and like it's so much better. And it's so like I have an amazing relationship with my parents. We're closer in age. Like it's super fun. There's so many benefits to it. So it's almost like the pendulum is swinging. Like right now, you've got a lot of women in their late 30s, and they're like, "Oh, I better like find a man to have kids." It's like, well, you kind of like missed your window.
Yeah.
And I know society's like, "Oh, go work, make money," but it's a mistake. This is backfiring.
And unfortunately, a lot of women are realizing
They're
that.
falling into this trap.
I think they realize just how much of a bill of goods feminism have sold them.
Yeah.
Right. Feminism has sold this idea that, women, you can do whatever men can do.
Right.
You can
And
make
you
your
don't need
own
men.
money. You can do
Right.
that like that. And you know what? A lot of women bought into that idea, and it's a lie. Women can't do everything that men can do. We have different energies. We're not the same. And some of these women that are out there slaying dragons every day at work, they're now in their late 30s or whatever, early 40s, and they're like, this sucks.
It does
This is
suck,
not what I want at all,
Right,
right?
right.
And yeah, like I'm glad that I have my independence. I'm glad that I'm not dependent on a man.
Yes.
So I'm glad for that.
Yeah.
That said, I'm not really that
I'm not
happy.
happy. I'm miserable.
Right?
Yes.
I'm miserable. And you know what? I would actually love to be more feminine. I would love to meet a man who could take care of me a little bit. Right.
Right.
But they've missed that window.
They've missed the window.
That window was earlier. And so I'll say another really, really important thing about locking up that guy young, which is that she's also young. And what that means is she likely has a low body count. Okay, and
This
may
is
be
huge. This is
may
really
be
important.
controversial.
Yeah.
But there's science that's absolutely
science is very
crystal clear, right?
Yeah.
A woman with a very low body count, and by very low I mean like under 4. Like I mean,
Yeah, very
either
low.
a virgin, one guy, two guys.
Those are the successful
it.
marriages. Once
Yeah.
they hit over a certain number and it's not that
And
big.
why is that? Why is it so important?
I don't want to get into it, but
I'll get into it. No, because there's science behind
Yeah,
it, right?
yeah.
So there's something called pair bonding. Pair bonding is something that happens in the animal kingdom in addition to us. If you think about, let's say, swans that are bonded for life. It's actually not true. They cheat.
Yeah.
Swans cheat, but not as much as humans do or chimpanzees or whatever. But pair bonding is actually very tied to sex, especially for women. For men too. So a man who's like a super slut is also has a problem pair bonding too. But that number's way higher. So that number for a man might be something like 200. It's really high. So if a man's been with like 200 women, it's like the same as a woman being with like 10 men.
right.
So the problem is if a woman's been now with, let's say, 10 or 12 men, which, there's lots of women, even that are pretty young, that have been with more than that. I saw a video where a woman was boasting of being with 34 men in 1 week at like spring break or something like that, and posting a video, a video about it,
they're
like
proud
as
of
if
it.
it's something to be something to be
Yeah.
proud of. But so what happens then is the likelihood of a woman settling with somebody that is going to be the best that she's had, especially sexually.
Yeah, it's
'Cause
impossible.
that's important.
Yeah,
it's impossible.
yeah.
Chances are that she's been with some Chad,
Yeah.
at the foam party or
Yeah.
something like that.
Foam party.
Whatever. And she might have been with him for 2 weeks, and he's a stud. Okay,
Yeah.
he's a 9.
Yeah.
Good looking guy.
Yeah,
The son of a senator or God knows what,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And going to be a great entrepreneur one day. And he was stripping her for a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
Okay?
right.
From that point on, at least from what I've seen of the data, like her expectation resets to that level.
Correct.
So now she says, okay, I'm 28, I'm 29, I'm kind of hitting the wall. I'm not pulling the men that I used to pull.
Yeah.
Here's Steve the accountant. He's a good, like solid guy. He pulls in 120 a year. I'm going to settle for him. I'm going to settle for him and I'm going to be happy. But she's not happy. She's not happy because he's not the guy
Right.
she used to have.
And then she's going to cheat on him and get divorced.
resents him, whatever. I have so many of my male friends that, they got married, whatever, 28, 29 to somebody 27. There's 2 kids, and then a woman's like, we're done. we're not having sex anymore. I don't want to have sex with you anymore, right? Or they have pity sex, starfish sex once a quarter.
Lots of sexless marriages.
It's absolutely terrible, and it's because the woman was partying too much in the 20s. Of course, there's no meter on a woman's head. It's not like an odometer in a car. You can't really tell. I mean, generally, it's just like, I've only been with 4 guys. You probably should triple that in terms of what the real number is, because women are smart. They know it. They know it's an issue. So now you've got these marriages that are either sexless or whatnot, or where the woman resents the guy and is like complaining all the time and whatnot, and they start coming apart. But if it happens earlier, before the body count goes up, there's a much better chance that guy is the best she's ever had. Right. And she loves everything about him in bed and otherwise.
And they grow together.
That's huge.
So, Mark, I don't know what the scientific terminology is, but I know every time a man has sex with a woman, they're imprinting their DNA on that woman. So what you don't want is a woman's had all these different men implanted their DNA. It's a permanent thing. So there's a whole bunch of science where the low body count is really, really important.
It's physical. I think it's psychological. I think relationships work really well when the man is the best the woman's ever had. And maybe she thinks the best I ever will have.
Right.
Now she's going to take good care of him. He's going to shower her with the love that she deserves. But there's this short window for your daughter, right? Where she ideally is going to find the great man pre-IPO, lock him up early before her body count ticks up. Because the modern sexual marketplace, it's very difficult, if not impossible, unless you're in a religious context like the church, synagogue. It's very difficult for women to say, well, sure, I'll have sex with you, but only after you commit. So most high-value men are just not going to do that deal. Now, they might have done it 50 years ago, 100 years ago, because that's the only thing that was available. Right. My parents are both virgins and they got married, right? So that was possible back then. These days, I think it'd be pretty hard, because for a guy says, well, I have to commit to you, but I can have all of this, and I don't have to pay for it, essentially. This is much cheaper for me than you. So a woman only has so many bullets in the gun. Because she's probably going to make a couple mistakes. She's going to probably feel like, hey, this guy is the guy. And then after the 3rd date, he ghosts her. It happens.
It's going to happen. Absolutely.
And I mean, I really feel, women complain about this. I really feel for them on this point, right? They says, I thought he's the guy. I gave him everything. And then he just ghosted me.
Which happens every day these days. So let's just, before we talk about advice for our sons, let's recap. So how to find a high value man, even at 19 or 20 or 21, you can tell by the discipline, whether maybe they're athletic or did sports, or maybe they're really into business, but they already had their first high school business. But you can tell by the character, the relationship with their parents, especially the father. It's really important. But these are all things that you can learn on a first date. And my advice would be go on lots of first dates. You don't need to have multiple dates with someone. Go on lots of first dates and really ask really good questions. And you can literally Google, what are the top 20 first date questions? There's some great questions to ask, but that's really important, because you can discern the high value, who that great pre-IPO stock is, just with some good questions on a first date.
No, I agree. I agree with all those things.
So let's talk about our sons.
Talk about our sons.
What advice do we give to our teenage sons?
So I think this is almost completely opposite. Not totally opposite, but a lot of things are different. And again,
let's talk about what's similar.
It's because the man.
Let's talk about what's similar. Then we'll talk about what's
I still think you want a high quality person, right? So intact home, good relationship with the mother, right? So I think you still have a lot of those things. You're still looking for somebody who's competent. So with me, I'm looking for someone who's competent and feminine at the same time. There's not a lot of women that are both. So, I think those things are common. You still want a high quality person. I think the advice still carries about, for example, be where the good women are. Right. So go learn salsa dancing as an example. Lots of really high quality women in university. It's what they're doing. Don't be afraid to if you're going to the gym, don't just go work out in a gym. Go take a class. Go take a yoga class.
Go take some classes. It's usually women in classes.
All women classes. And what kind of women? High quality women with discipline, with work ethic, who are working hard to keep themselves slim. Right. So I think that part is pretty similar.
I think doing sports is a really good thing for men, because they're going to meet athletic women too. They're going to meet women that are disciplined. So I think, clubs and sports and things where there's women involved, but doing a physical activity would be really important.
I totally agree. Yeah. So I think some of the same clubs and activities
And
sports.
find one with good families, and also go on lots of first dates. Like
Yeah.
you don't need lots of multiple dates, but go on lots of, because you want to learn different
first dates.
personalities.
Yeah, you want to be in a position where you're the position of choosing. So
Right.
here's where things start getting a
Okay,
little bit
now
different.
we'll go to the difference.
Yeah, so here's where things are starting to get a little bit different, right? Even for a highly attractive 19-year-old man has to work hard to get even first dates.
Right.
It's a completely different situation. And not only that, he has to do all the work. Most women are not asking guys out,
Correct.
right? So men have to learn how to approach women.
Yes.
Probably a good thing to teach your son how to do
just
that.
how to talk.
How to talk to them,
Yeah.
and not just texting,
Right.
right?
Look in the eyes.
Look in the eyes,
Speak
like
to them, ask them
meet,
questions.
a really attractive woman walks
Yeah.
by you in the street. You can talk to her. You don't have to let her walk by. I mean, yes, I know we're in this age of sexual harassment and all this kind of stuff. But you know what? If you're a good-looking guy, most young women are actually pretty happy for you to talk to them, and they ask you the time and ask where you're going and initiate a conversation.
Yeah.
So I think there's some discipline around how to approach, how to develop those early relationships and go on dates.
So I'll just tell you a funny story. So I was with my youngest son. It was last summer in Muskoka, and we were at a Boston Pizza. So in Muskoka, all like the really attractive girls, the waitresses there, they're like cottage girls, usually from affluent families. So one of the boys, I guess he liked the waitress. So his opening line was like, "Can I snap you?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's like the worst line." So, but I took it upon myself to go, like, I got to teach these boys like how to like smile at the woman and how to speak. Like as men, we have to teach our sons these basics, because no one else, some TikTok videos aren't going to teach them this stuff because they don't even know how to do that. They don't even know how to look in the eyes or smile or compliment them. Like but we have to teach this to our sons.
Absolutely. It's actually an area where I'm bonding with my son currently. I hope you did at least give your son positive feedback about even talking to her, because most boys can't even do that.
You're right.
Anymore.
You're right.
No, I mean, that's the hard thing. You have to reward all the positive behavior.
Right.
No, and that's the thing. Like most boys are buried in their phone.
They're just looking down all the time.
Texting, what's up,
and they've lost a lot of the social skills and manners and like just, opening a door for a woman or the chair, like all these basic manners, they're all gone. So we have to teach our sons this stuff.
And unfortunately, I think, both boys and girls have a challenge. So for girls, the challenge is how do you identify the pre-IPO guy?
Yeah.
Men have, I think, a lot more that they have to develop, right?
Yeah.
I do believe that women have some inherent value because they reproduce. They have inherent value. The world has always taken care of women over men. It's men that get sent to war.
Right.
Right. Men have a four times higher suicide rate than women.
Right.
Women generally almost 100% of women who want to reproduce can reproduce.
Yes.
Much less than 100% of men who want to reproduce can reproduce.
Right.
So men only have value when they produce value.
Yes.
And that is a lesson that I'm teaching my son. The world doesn't owe you anything, son.
Yeah.
Right?
You've got to produce value.
It doesn't owe you anything.
Yeah.
So you need to keep yourself in good shape. You need to develop a mission, skills and stuff, which includes approach skills, seduction skills, and all that stuff with the opposite sex. But especially a lot around building a high value career, building a network, and around that. And there's not a lot of time to do that in the 20s.
Yeah.
And so I would say to my son, it would be, don't get locked up too early.
Correct.
Okay, because at that point you're actually buying high.
Yeah.
You're 22. The woman you like is also 22. You're buying at the absolute highest price.
Yeah, you're buying Nvidia
and
today.
and you're down here. Because you've not made anything out of yourself.
Right.
Other than hopefully you look pretty good because you're young, but you've not made anything out of yourself yet. And chances are, if you continue to work at yourself, at 26, 27, 28, you are now buying lower, or your value is a lot higher. So you're buying lower.
Yeah.
So it means that you're actually working on your business. And I really hope my son...
Focus on your school, on your part-time business, and like really develop yourself.
Yes, right. And so ideally for me, there's some entrepreneurship that's involved,
Yeah.
but even if he goes the corporate route,
Yeah. If it's a job, put it all in, like go in, be the first one in, last one to leave, give it all.
Figure out how to get to the top, figure out how to hopscotch and ladder, right?
Yeah.
Because if you stay more than 2 years at one company, you're probably not maximizing your value.
Have great friends, super like high achieving friends, because those are the right kind of people to hang out with.
Absolutely, yeah. Build a great network in university and keep it. So if there's one thing, oh my God, I would do over again.
Okay, this is
I
good.
built a decent network at Queen's. So when I started at Eloqua, a number of my coworkers actually who joined the company were all from Queen's. But at the same time, like Elon Musk was a year older than me at Queen's.
Amazing.
I didn't know him.
Crazy.
Right?
Wow.
And there were some amazing people actually in my year and the year, year above me.
Was it Dr. Attila?
Yeah.
Attila?
Pete Attila actually sparred with him in Muay Thai.
Yeah.
But you know what? My bad.
Yeah.
I didn't keep up with him.
Yeah.
Okay. Mike Serbinis, who I do know, who actually worked with Elon at Zip2, like I met him, but we lost contact.
Yeah.
If I could write it all, all over again.
We could have worked harder. Like Edward Rogers, which I keep in touch with, sort of, was as my university. But the contacts that you're right. We could have done a better job of building those relationships.
Oh yeah, and that's my number one advice to my kids, for both of them, which is the network that you build in university. Like it's really the main reason to go to university these days is to find a mate and build a network. Like I don't think
you're right.
It's as much yes, you get a credential, which is worth less and less out there. A lot of people have the credential now. Very few people actually work in their field anymore. But that network that you build, and again, I wish I did a better job of that. And I'd put metrics around it. I'm actually working on that with my daughter, like doing OKRs, or objectives and key results, not just the schoolwork, but it's like, are you meeting good men? Are you developing real friendships?
I
are you
think the
developing
friendships are really important. The quality of the friendships, making sure. And I did have that conversation last week with my daughter, and sometimes we outgrow our friends, and sometimes you need new friends. And so I think the friendships are really important. These are good. These are good lessons. And if they have great friends, then they also have, like if we're speaking to our sons, like they have sisters, they have daughters, like they have their whole friend network is part of that too. So by developing great friendship, you get a whole new social circle.
And most likely where their future mate may come from.
Right.
Hopefully more likely there than on Tinder or Bumble.
Right.
So the ideal scenario for me, for my son, is like he's now 27.
Yeah.
He owns a business. He works out in a gym. He's developed approach skills, seduction skills.
Yeah.
He has a great network of friends around him. And now the world's his oyster, because now that 22, 23-year-old, is actually completely attainable for him.
Yeah, correct.
And now you have a potential really good union where you have a woman with a low body count, who's still in her femininity. She's looking up to my son, who's accomplishing things and is confident, much more than he was at 22.
Yeah.
He's now got 5 years where he's done well. I think that's the maximum opportunity there.
I think you're right. I mean, I was a pretty mature a guy, but honestly, Mark, until I was 30, I didn't really take life that seriously. Like at 30, it's like when I started my business, I bought a house, lived with my girlfriend. Like I got really serious. So I think a lot of guys are 20. I think that sometimes they're too young. Mm-hmm. Again, I can't speak for other people, but I know it wasn't until I was 30, till I was I was serious, I was ready, I wasn't partying every night. So I think for men, it does take longer.
Which is interesting, even for you.
And I'm like a pretty dedicated guy.
Yeah, you're precocious. Like
you
were a big fan of Tony Robbins and other things.
I bought my first property at age 14. Yeah. Like I created like before we had hedge funds. Like I had one in high school. I was I did crazy things. Yeah. But it wasn't until I was 30 that I'm like, okay, my partying days are behind. I'm serious now. I'm starting my business. I'm going all in. But if you'd got me in my 20s, it was too young. I wasn't ready yet.
So that's what I think that's the window. So it's like 26 to 31 ish, right? That ideally it's a great time for him to settle down.
Yeah.
He's now again, I will still say, you need to understand women. It means you do need to go on dates.
Yeah.
You need to have sex with women. You need to get good at it.
Yeah.
It's important. Those are important skills.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not something you have to do.
You can't learn that. That's not like watching porn. Porn is actually going to teach you all the wrong stuff. That's like the worst thing for you.
That's huge. I would say that's one of the things my mom also did a good job teaching me. Even as a man, she always told me it's called making love for a reason. And it's never as good. It's amazing when you're with someone you love.
Yeah.
And that's always
100%.
Stuck with me.
Yeah.
And a couple of times when I was younger, when I was with someone that I didn't like that much, but I just want to get my rocks off, it sucked.
Yes.
So I think, for sure, like, hey son, have a good time.
Yeah.
But don't be chasing tail at the expense of your mission.
Right.
Build your skills.
Yeah.
Because when you get to that point where you are, on your rocket ship, the world's your oyster, you're going to be able to get such a higher quality of woman.
Yeah.
And not only are you going to get a higher quality of woman, she's going to treat you right. She's going to treat you really well because she's going to be like, what did I do to deserve this guy?
Right. Because look what accomplishments he's built already. Because you want to be the man that has all these accomplishments, and you also, that's where your self-confidence comes from. It's like what you did. Like I did this. These are all proof points of who you are. And I think that's huge because a lot of people are just dreamers. A lot of people are just sitting around watching Instagram videos or TikTok videos, dreaming about stuff, but they've accomplished nothing.
Yeah. No,
so you've got to have those accomplishments.
I think exactly true. I mean, what I've heard before, which I really think is true, is that women want to be taken on a journey. They want to, so a man comes into their life and says, this is what I have to offer you.
Right.
Right. I'm not going to ask you, hey, where do you want to go, lady? I'll take you wherever you want to go. Like I'm a taxi driver.
No, you have to have a vision.
Yeah. It's like I'm a taxi driver. I'll take you where you want to go. Well, then my only role is to take a woman where she wants to go.
Right.
Well, that's wrong.
No.
Right. The right thing to do instead is to say, here's my vision for our life. Here's where I can take you.
Yeah.
This is what I'm thinking in terms of our vacations and our children together.
Yeah.
And the friends that we're going to be with and whatever.
Yeah.
Do you want to be part of my world?
Yeah.
Because I'm already making it happen. Yeah. I'm already halfway there, lady.
Yeah.
Halfway there.
That's huge.
Right? Join me and let's get to this place together. Like that's the way to win as a man.
And I think even at, in your late 20s, like a man should know, like, where do I want to live and where do I want my kids to go to school and like, where would I want my vacation home? Like you got to have the plan. You've got to have a 10, 15 year plan already to attract, I think, the right woman.
I agree. And I think we can teach our sons this.
Yeah.
I think honestly, we have now the experience.
Yeah.
We have the wisdom. We've made the mistakes. Where I think we can actually help our sons and our daughters, both of them, create these sort of plans.
Yeah. And the last point on this, I would just say, teaching them to be super healthy. So let's talk about the young man. Like if he's super healthy, physically fit, and he's getting his sleep and he's eating properly, like he's way more attractive, like already, and he's gonna be happier. So even just teaching some basic health things is going to help them in the dating and the mating process.
It's huge. Yeah. Again, I have a much more appreciation for how important attractiveness is for men. Right. Yeah. The media likes to say that, it doesn't really matter that much, and it's what's inside that counts.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
A man's physical attractiveness is extremely important. And that includes not just the physical appearance, but things like habits.
Yeah. And that's what builds confidence. And what's interesting is in America, there's a lot of people, a few hundred million, over 300 million people, but only 3 million people, you can see their abs. And I know in our last episode, you took off your shirt and you're not 23 anymore, but your body's like a bodybuilder. It's like you got abs. I think teaching our sons why it's important, to be a one percenter, because that's a one percenter.
Yes.
So it's actually easier to become a millionaire than it is to have visible abs. But I think we have to teach, our sons to be one percenters, because in our society, like if you're not a one percenter, like you're screwed. Like you're really screwed in every aspect of life. You're kind of screwed.
Unfortunately, you're right. I would never want to be in the bottom, even 90%. I'm scared to know what that even looks like or feels like.
Yeah, it can't be good. And I think, if our kids are just playing video games all day, yeah, it's fun. We all need entertainment, but like how many hours is acceptable? Like if to be a one percenter, even as a 19-year-old boy, like you need to start prioritizing your daily time and where you spend your time.
Yeah. So I think as fathers, and for the women watching as mothers, I think we have a leadership job to do, right? Which means that we are establishing a vision for our sons and daughters. yours.
Yeah.
This is what the world that is possible for you.
Yeah.
And to communicate that clearly and to work together to say, what do you see? What do you envision? What do you want in your life? And of course, the son's like, I want a Bugatti, whatever. Okay.
Right.
But once we're realistic, is this is the vision you want, and crystallize it, make it powerful, and then say, let's come up with a plan on how you're going to get there.
Yeah.
That's what leadership is all about. And I think we have to provide just as much, if not more, leadership for our children. And again, what is a minefield of dating and mating?
And it's hard with our kids, Mark, because like they don't really want to talk to us. It's like I start talking, I have these conversations with my kids in the car, like, Dad, stop talking. Like they don't want to hear it, but I think we have to find a way to communicate this and teach these, because man, I wish they had taught this to us. Like I wish somebody had these conversations with us. And I think a lot of it's like teaching them like to keep their room clean and making the bed and doing their own laundry and putting the dishes away. Like these are valuable skills that when you're in a mating process, like when a woman sees that, like, wow, it's like a responsible guy. He actually knows how to cook. Like this is super attractive.
Yeah, no, those are definitely good. I'm grateful to have picked up some of those skills from my mom. But yeah, I mean, I do think, at least from my experience, children are interested in success. They are, right? And so even maybe starting the conversation with, what do you see for yourself? Like when you imagine your future husband, when you imagine your future wife, what are they like? What kind of habits do they have? Where do they come from? What kind of activities do you have? How much sex do you get? I mean, so, and I think these are questions that they probably aren't annoyed with, because it really is about them, right? You're not lecturing them. You're not saying, go keep your room clean,
right,
or whatever, which is like, oh, shut up, Dad, same old thing. It's like, no, son, like, what do you see for yourself?
Yeah.
And then say, great, now that you see this for yourself, let's figure out how to make it happen. Let's make it real. Let's make it vivid for you. And then I think you've got a chance where he is going to go to sleep on time instead of watching TikTok all night, or playing video games, where he is going to have the guts to approach the pretty girl in the gym.
The confidence, it's all about confidence.
Because that's hard, but what drives that? It's like, I think it's a combination of really two things, of which we both talked about. One is the powerful, vivid vision of the future. And the second thing are the habits, the little small habits, which include the cleaning the room and making a bed, the small individual habits that are going to get them there. So for example, the habit of you have to approach 2 girls a week, for example, for a guy.
Even just to make friends, be friendly, say hello, smile.
Yeah, and like give yourself a goal, give yourself a metric, right? These are habits, because once you do that the first time and you get good at it, then you're like, oh, this is easy.
This is easy. Yeah, I'm not
I can
afraid.
do this 3, 4, or 5 times, right?
You're right.
And so those two things, big vision, this ladder of sort of habits on the way up. And I think as parents, we absolutely can drive that. Like that is on both fronts, right? That's what we do as leaders.
Yeah.
Big vision, but it's also say, okay, now let's break it down. How do you get from where we are today? How do we get to the goal? Let's go and figure that out together. Let's put metrics around that, right? How many people do you need to approach a week? How much, you want to put on 20 pounds of muscle? How are you going to do that? What are you actually going to do every week in the gym, in your diet, so that you go and hit your goal? We can help them do that.
Yeah. One of the things I did successfully, Mark, with my kids, because my kids are very social, like I am too. Every vacation we went on, we usually stay like at an all-inclusive resort, for example. But every morning, guys, we're going to set a goal, who can make the most amount of friends? So every day, and we've done this forever. And it's like, oh, I met Bill or John, or somebody says, oh, I met 3. What are their names? Oh, you don't know their names? Well, that doesn't count. Like you have to know their names.
Love it.
Because this is about teaching them like to get out of the comfort zone and make friends. So I think these are things. And the last thing I'll just say on this topic is we have to model behavior. Telling our kids something, but they got to see it. If they see us all night sitting on our phones, like what are we telling our kids? Like they're modeling our behavior.
If there's one lesson anybody takes from this is that, right?
Yeah, they're modeling
and
us.
it's hard. So I think when I said we need to be leaders, I think that's part of that. Part of being a leader, like I've been a CEO of a couple of companies, you're in a fishbowl. Everybody's watching.
They're always
all of
watching
behavior.
you. Even when you don't think they are, they're always watching you.
And we have to model. We've both been guilty of being on the phone too much, for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's go wrap it up.
Okay. Thanks everybody for joining us. So this is the Best Half Show. We're all about 10xing your life. And we've just introduced something really powerful. It's called the 75-Day Challenge. The 75-Day Challenge, it's a 75-day challenge. It's actually coming up July 1st. And you can enter the 75-Day Challenge. It's completely free. And it's a way to completely transform your health. It starts with your sleep and exercise. And it's unbelievable. Mark and I just finished it. Life-changing results in every area of your life. So we encourage you to come check out 75 Day Challenge. It's life-changing.